Hi, everybody. Welcome to ParDreamin. This is going to be our presentation on Pardot sync errors, diagnosing, solving, and preventing them. I am Laura Black. I've been using Pardot since 2011, back before Pardot was even owned by Salesforce. I often say I'm so old in Pardot years that I remember before some common Pardot features were implemented. So I remember when folders didn't exist and when page actions introduced wildcards. It was actually a really big deal. It was pretty cool. So over my years of using Pardot, I have broken a lot of things and I have had to figure out how to fix them. So I've been around, I've seen a lot of things, and I hope that you'll find something interesting with today's talk about sync errors. You can find me on Twitter and on my website. I go by Pardot Pro on Twitter, and my website is pardotpro.com. And I also put in the chat a link to the slides that I'm showing right now. You can download them there. And then I also have, at the end of my presentation, I have a blog post showing my fancy trick and how to create this automation rule I'm going to show you at the end. So real quick, I'm going to cover, in this session, what are sync errors? Why are they even important? I'm going to show you some common sync errors, examples of each one, and talk about how to solve each of them. And I'm going to close out by showing you some tips and tricks from me, Pardot Pro, and I think you'll find it fun. And so let's dive in. So when I talk about sync errors, some people don't even know what sync errors are. And so, the next question is, why do we even care about them? So let's start with, where do you even find them? Sometimes when I ask people, hey, you're saying you're having problems, what do your sync errors look like? They kind of give me a blank look. They don't even know what sync errors are. So I'm showing you Pardot Classic, but it's the same thing in Lightning. Basically, you just go to the connectors page, and then on the Salesforce connector, find the little gear or cog icon and click that, and you get this menu to drop down, and you'll see one of the options is sync errors. So it's showing me that I have 3. And when you click that, it's going to show you a page kind of like this. Now, I have 3. The worst I've ever seen is over 30,000, and that was quite something to look at. Sync errors are bad because they mean that your prospect is not syncing at all with Salesforce. So you do want as close to 0 as possible. But this sync errors table that you're looking at here, this is a normal prospect table, right? It shows you their name, their company, their score, their grade, but it's got these 2 extra columns, one for the date the error occurred, the last time it tried to sync is in that column, and then a column for the actual errors that are preventing the sync. This is a normal prospect table. You can select them all and do table actions with a little drop-down box at the bottom. I'm going to show you something with that later. You can also export things from this page, from the little tools thing. I'm going to show you that too. So this error message is what I want to call your attention to. And the important thing to know is that these errors, they are not something that Pardot just threw in there. These errors are actually coming from Salesforce. Salesforce threw in an error. Pardot was trying to sync with this record and it couldn't, so it's showing you the date, and then it's showing you the actual error that Salesforce displayed to Pardot. So if you were editing, a record, a Salesforce record, and you would get a little error on the lead page or an error on the contact page, it's the same exact error you would get there. So the problem with these errors is it means that these prospects don't sync with Salesforce at all. So changes in either system do not sync to the other system. So if a change in Pardot, like they filled out a form and they updated something when they filled out the form, that change can't sync up to Salesforce. Changes in Salesforce, like maybe an opportunity was one, that doesn't sync down to Pardot because there's an error. And that can have big implications because, for example, maybe they closed that opportunity and they're now a customer, so they should automatically meet your suppression list for, prospective customer nurture. That one, that causes problems because you're not able to drop them out of nurtures, or maybe they're getting the wrong emails. Maybe they should be suppressed, and just the systems don't sync, so they can't match your Pardot suppression rules or join lists that they should join as customers, things like that. So, as much as I said they're really important, don't panic because they come in some pretty common types. And I'm going to show you some of the most common types and also show you how to solve the most common types. And I have a link, and like I said, you can get my slides and you can follow the link to the Salesforce help article that talks about common sync errors and how to solve them. So let's just dive in to the most common sync error I see is literally bad data is preventing a sync to Salesforce. So on the screen, this is a custom validation rule. So like your Salesforce admin has set up a validation rule of some kind. This one in particular says that when the country field says United States, the state field must be populated, right? You might see something that says field integrity exception. There's a problem with this country or state, even though it may appear correct. Other examples are an invalid pick list value, a field length being too long. So these are really, really common sync errors that you might occur. And, you know, the solution is pretty straightforward. So like if you're saying that a field requires a value, then you need to populate the value. If you have, you know, field integrity exception, you need to correct something. Invalid pick list value, you need to correct something. So these can be things like your Salesforce admin implemented a validation rule saying like you can only use the countries listed in this field, and somebody imported a list and they use England instead of United Kingdom. You know, the rule that says if it says United States, you can only use the US states in the 2-letter state code format instead of the fully spelled out state code format. And the fully spelled out state was inserted. You know, so those are really common errors. And the solution is really simple. You as the Pardot admin, you know, you can correct most of these things. And I mentioned before that you can export your prospects, your sync errors table, and you can just get this out of, you know, you go to the prospect table, you choose CSV export from the tools option, and I'm showing you on the screen, I've highlighted, you know, the countries and like Atlanta is known in the city, but we don't have a state filled in. Well, I can just fill in the state, Georgia, and then I can re-import this CSV. Re-importing, it's going to put it back in the sync queue. It's going to sync in a few minutes. You still need, you know, the master field level settings where Pardot is able to update data in Salesforce. You need to still change the sync behavior so that Pardot's able to overwrite the value in Salesforce. But once you re-import it, all that happens, it puts it in the sync queue, it syncs, the data updates in Salesforce, things sync again. And it gets really easy to fix these things that are bad data. So don't be afraid of them, right? The next issue is going to be where you have an error message that says duplicates are found. And this may be 2 contacts. You may have 2 contacts in Salesforce. You may have a lead and a contact. You may have 2 leads. You know, like duplicates are kind of the bane of the marketer's existence, because in Pardot, you might have a contact who's in an account and the account is a client, but then you also have a duplicate that's the lead. And Pardot is just copying what Salesforce does. So if you have duplicates, it's because you have duplicates in Salesforce. So, you know, somebody created a lead and now, you know, they marked the lead as like eligible for nurture somehow. So now this person who's supposed to be marked as a client, there's a duplicate of them that's marked as a potential prospect and you're going to nurture them. And, you know, it just makes you look bad because Pardot is going to put the version, quote unquote, version of them that is a lead into the nurture program. The lead can't inherit any account fields that would normally suppress them. So, and suppressions are ID number specific. So like a contact has a specific CRM ID, a lead has a specific CRM ID. So if the contact version is on a suppression list, it doesn't affect the lead version of them. The lead version of them is still eligible to get those emails. So, you know, it's pretty tricky. And like I said, duplicates are kind of the bane of your existence as a marketer. I will say that there are some reasons for businesses to have duplicates on purpose. But if that is the case, your Salesforce admin probably needs to disable a duplicate validation rule in Salesforce so you won't see these things and you would know about it up front. So if you're seeing an error that says a duplicate is found, the solution is to go into Salesforce and merge them. Do not delete records from Salesforce. Delete causes other problems, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But you should never delete records from Salesforce. The great thing about merging the records in Salesforce is that Pardot's going to follow what you do in Salesforce. So when you merge the duplicates in Salesforce, when it syncs with Pardot, Pardot's going to do the exact same thing and merge the duplicate records in Pardot. So basically, if you have two Pardot prospects and one of them has a cookie and one doesn't, one of them has been sent emails, it's going to merge all of the prospects, into the same one. It's going to solve all that problem for you by merging them. So when you have, for example, two contacts, merge the one, keep the one that has opportunities associated with it, keep the one that is like associated with a client account. I see a question in the chat, is it not good practice to merge in Pardot? So if you have Pardot only prospects, go ahead and merge them in Pardot. But when you have prospects that are syncing to Salesforce, merge them in Salesforce, because you want to solve the root of the problem, and the root of the problem is in Salesforce. So do it in Salesforce. Salesforce is the master, and then it will sync down to Pardot. In the event where you have a lead and a contact, you want to convert the lead and merge it into the existing contact. You do not want to delete the lead, okay? Deleting things causes problems. So merge records whenever you can. And so this takes us on to, common error number 3, which is where you'll get a flow error message, cannot execute flow trigger. So this one I've obfuscated it, obviously, because it was a screenshot. But, basically this means that too many things tried to happen in Salesforce, and Salesforce choked and couldn't execute the flow. So a common scenario for this, like in normal times, maybe you went to a trade show and you got an Excel file, and now you're going to upload it into Pardot to do your follow-up, right? Plus, when you upload a file into Pardot, Pardot's going to dedupe for you based on email address. So then you're uploading the file, and you're going to let Pardot do its deduping, and you're going to drop them into a nurture. But along the way, you want to assign them into Salesforce. So it's pushing the records into Salesforce kind of all at once, hundreds and hundreds of them at a time. Well, Pardot can kind of shove too many things at Salesforce, and Salesforce can't quite keep up, so you might see this error. The solution here takes advantage of a brand new feature Pardot just rolled out, and it's option to resync prospects. So at your prospect table, just select all of them, go down to the bottom and choose this table option called Resync Prospects. Click Go, and you're going to see the prospects be back into the sync queue, and they should sync in a few minutes, and that error will go away. So this is probably the easiest one to solve. So that is the 3 most common sync errors you see. I'm going to move on to, and here's the link, like I said, that you can get. Like I said, I'm sharing out the slides, and you can click through and read the most common sync errors that Pardot Salesforce have written for you. So I'm going to move on to something that is not technically a sync error, but is still a problem for you. And if you remember, I said deleting things from Salesforce is bad. This is why. So when you have a record that's been deleted from Salesforce, Pardot flags it as it no longer has like a lead ID or a contact ID. Pardot flags it as CRM Deleted. And this flag is the biggest royalist pain that you will encounter. Well, one of them. But basically, it means that Pardot can no longer sync with Salesforce. And from Salesforce's point of view, like Salesforce just puts them in the Salesforce recycle bin, and they get deleted after a period of time. With Pardot, deleting the record does drop them in the Pardot recycle bin, but Pardot does not automatically purge its recycle bin. It just stays in the recycle bin, stays with this flag of CRM Deleted. The problem happens when sales has disqualified a lead, and instead of like doing what they're supposed to do and marking them disqualified, they just delete it. It goes into the Pardot recycle bin, and now this lead actually comes back and fills out the contact us form again. Well, Pardot can't create a new lead out of this person because the CRM Deleted flag is preventing it from syncing with Salesforce. So there's a lead sitting there that just cannot be created, cannot be followed up on, right? So deleting things from Salesforce is a problem. And the solution here is you have to run these records through a very special automation rule to clear that CRM Deleted status. So the first step is going to be creating the automation rule and looking for the recently active but deleted prospects. So the first step is to create a line item in your automation rule looking for CRM status is, and instead of picking contact or lead, you pick deleted, Now the next step, and this got a little small, but I wrote it out for you on the left side. The next step here is you don't want to apply this action to every deleted prospect in your database because some of those deletions might go back years. So you just kind of want to look for the most recently active ones. And this is a tip from Mike Cruiser that I'm stealing. But basically, you're going to look for people who are active less than 1 day ago. So we have the first line of the rule is prospect CRM status is deleted. The next line is and prospect time, choose prospect time from the bottom of that dropdown. Last activity days ago is less than, and put 1. And so that gives you like today as being less than 24 hours ago, right? So, so that gives you the people who are recently active. And if you want to go back like 7 days or whatever, that's fine. It doesn't hurt anything. But just if you run this based on just CRM status is deleted, it might get you the people who were deleted years and years and years ago, depending on how long ago you started using Pardot. And your sales team is going to hate you if you just dump a bunch of previously deleted prospects who actually haven't done anything on them again. So the line for prospect time last activity days ago, less than 1, gives you people who did something like filled out a form less than a day ago or clicked through an email less than a day ago, something like that, you know, an activity that can be tracked back to Pardot. And then the action is the important part, and the action is a special action that says allow deleted CRM lead or contact to recreate from Pardot. Not the magic step. So the other point that I want to point out to you is, like I said, you should tell your sales team never to delete things from Salesforce, but you can't always trust them to do that. So remove their ability to delete, right? So that things can keep syncing. Maybe remove the delete button from the page layout in Salesforce. Like, just make life easier. Don't let this be a problem. But if it is a problem, here's an automation rule for how you can get these records syncing back up again. So that's the point where I get to talk about, you know, this whole presentation has been me talking about problems with syncing, problems with records that aren't syncing with Salesforce. This is where I kind of get to be fun and talk about a reason you might want to purposely prevent prospects from syncing with Salesforce, right? And this kind of comes down to bad data in Salesforce costs you money. Like literally bad email addresses that are marked as mailable, they count against your contact blocks, right? When you signed up for Pardot, you got 10,000 seats in your database for free, and then for every additional 10,000, you pay for an additional contact block, and you know, it costs more money. And these junk records take up space that you could better allocate somewhere else. And if you then, you know, you're nurturing them, you drop an email, a whole bunch of them bounce, like it does bad things for your email reputation. So let's set up some things that are going to help you detect the bad records and mark them as unmailable so they stop costing you money, right? So let's say that I am paging through my Salesforce account, my Pardot account rather, and something caught my eye, or I did an export and something caught my eye, and it was like an obvious junk ASDF@email.com or some, you know, BS. And I just am going to manually apply the tag junk to them. I mean, you can use whatever tag you want. I just like the word junk. So if I'm flipping through something catches my eye, I apply the tag junk to them. Now I go over and I make an automation rule, just simply looking for that tag. And so the line item is prospect tag is junk. As soon as you've tagged at least one thing, that junk tag will show up in your options there. So make sure you apply it to at least one thing. And then the actions here are, the first one is do not sync with CRM. This means that it's going to set a flag as ignore, so it won't sync with Salesforce. And then the second item is actually going to mark them as if they're hard bounds. So you want to change the prospect default field called do not email to do not email, which seems kind of redundant, but that's how it's said. So, and then optionally, but I like it, just create a static list that says like, oh, to be deleted or something like that. This tells me that I can go to this static list and delete anybody who's on that list, send them to my recycle bin, call it a day, right? Just get them out of my database. I know they've been processed basically if they're showing up on that list. So this is pretty straightforward. Like if I'm manually tagging people junk, they're going to get hit by this automation rule and I can go on about my day. But it's not really very automatic, right? And I have to manually find them. So this is where we put the automation back into marketing automation. You might have noticed that and if you've been doing this email marketing gated content thing for a while, there are some things out there that are temporary email domains. So one of them is Mailinator. One of them, my favorite one is called Shark Lasers. I don't really know what that's about, but you can see others that are called like 10-minute email, things like that. And basically the idea is that, let's say you're gating a piece of content, you're trying to prevent these things, but you know, people try and get through a form without putting in their real information, so they put junk in there. You can leverage common stuff in the email domain and make them match an automation rule and mark them as junk automatically, so that they automatically stop counting against your database limits, they stop costing you money, all that good stuff. So this rule, I'm just going to go update the rule that I just made. And so it still says, you know, prospect tag is junk. Now I'm going to say match any, so I get or separators in between them. And then I'm going to use the semicolon trick, where in Salesforce it uses a comma to create an or between multiple entries. Pardot uses a semicolon. So the fun part is that I've got a file on my website where you can download these really common email domains that are bad that I've come across over the years, and you can run it through Cruise Your Data app and create an automation rule. I've got that link for you in a few minutes. But basically, you can create these line items that say a prospect default field email ends with or contains or whatever, and then, you know, at something.com. You know, and so like at mailinator.com, all of those email addresses are going to get captured. And you know, the action again is the same actions before. You don't sync with the CRM. You change the prospect default field, do not email to do not email. You can add them to your junk list if you want. The thing here that I want to point out is that there's this feature at the bottom called at the bottom of automation rules called execute in real time. And I don't usually recommend turning this feature on, but it works really, really well with this sort of thing. And what execute in real time means, it's a fun trick. And it doesn't mean what it sounds like it means. It doesn't mean that this rule is constantly running, constantly checking. It does run in the background like a normal automation rule. But when somebody fills out a form, the form actually pings this automation rule and checks if something in the form submission means that this automation rule should fire immediately before other form completions are done. So let's say you have a form set up to deliver your gated content, right? You're not giving them a button that says download here. You're preventing them from entering bad addresses. Maybe you're trying to stop your competitors, something like that. You're delivering your content by email. You know, you send them an email from the form. This rule, marking them as unmailable, would actually fire before that email is sent. So the form is submitted. This rule runs checking against the email address. So if it says like mailinator.com or 10-minute email or something like that, they're going to get marked as hard bounced unmailable before the email even fires out. So that means that you've cleaned your database, prevented a junk submission, all in kind of one step, and you didn't have to do anything, and it was automatic. So all that said, you know, this is kind of a dangerous automation rule, because if you you could potentially, if you do it badly, make your whole database unmailable. So before you run any automation rule, make sure you always run the automation rule preview. Make sure the preview that you're seeing like actually is junk records. It's not all 80,000 people in your database. If you see a bad number, that's your opportunity to fix something before you turn it on, right? So that is my fun trick. And like I said, I promised I had this as available as a link on my website. And I created a blog post, you know, creating the step-by-step how to make the automation rule. It's on my website right now. You can go there and download it. But yeah, you can read more about what Pardot thinks about, Pardot and Salesforce think about preventing prospect syncing. They have a whole big article in the help section. And then also, like I said, my blog post that I just put in the chat is there. And that will do it for me. And I'm going to show you the closing slide because I know I'm a little over time. So make sure you check out the next sessions. But if you have questions, I'm happy to hang out and answer questions. And scrolling through the questions, it looks like maybe I got a question along the way. Anybody have final questions? Let's see, Q&A tab. Okay, is there a way to not sync prospects that have hard bounces? So the question there is, if they've hard bounced, I mean, you can, but they don't count against your mailable database, so I would just leave them alone, because at some point, if their email address updates, that hard bounce is going to clear automatically, so you want them to sync again, and that's just kind of more work than you need to do. So I would just leave them alone. The hard bounces already don't count against your Pardot database limits. Ursula, for dupe sync errors, how can you identify current dupes in Pardot? So Pardot doesn't have any sort of good way to do this, but if you have duplicates in Pardot, they came out of Salesforce. So your duplicate matching in Salesforce is where you should be looking. You could, of course, export your entire database into an Excel file, use the Excel, find duplicates. A lot of pain, a lot of work, a lot of manual work. Use Salesforce duplicate matching, because Pardot's not going to create duplicates for you. It's only going to mimic what's in Salesforce. So yeah, just do duplicate matching in Salesforce. Leah says, is there a best practice for dealing with the same person with a different email? Okay, so I don't have any recommendation for you. It's possible that Pardot adopting the individual object might solve this, but that's a couple of releases away. This is a common problem with higher ed. This is a common problem with nonprofits. I don't have any good advice for you for that. If you create like a Twitter post or something and ping me, I'll retweet it. I know some people who are kind of in that world who might have better suggestions than I do. Noah asked, how to resync prospects more than a page of 50? So if you select all 50 at a time, Noah, look at the top of the prospect table. There's a little text link that says 50 selected. Do you want to select all XXX number in this page? Click that, and then you'll see the page action, the table action at the bottom, update to that number of total people. So that's a fun little gotcha with Pardot. Is there any hidden way to have Pardot email you when the sync error is occurred? Nope, so sorry, that does not exist. It is highly requested though. So you do make a practice of checking your sync errors page. When a prospect is in a sync queue, how long are they typically there before they sync with Salesforce? So that's a hard question to answer, and it really depends on the actual number of people in your database. If you have hundreds of thousands of people, and they're constantly syncing with Salesforce, there's more people in your database. Pardot syncs kind of in batches. So it syncs about 200 at a time every 30 seconds. So if you have like 10,000 people in your database, it'll go through your whole list pretty quickly. But if you have millions and millions and millions of records, you should probably ask Pardot about increasing your syncing, or seeing if there's something wrong that your system is constantly resyncing. But most things will sync in within an hour or so. Michelle was asking, is the resync table only available in Lightning? No, it is available in Classic. I was showing you Classic, actually. All right. Someone who had my instance before me broke the sync for all hard bounce, and it's been a nightmare to clean it up. I wouldn't recommend it. Yes, I agree, Amanda. All right. I think I got all the questions. If I missed something, please ping me on Twitter, or you can come to my website and submit the form, and I will try and help you by email. But thanks, everyone. I'm definitely over time, so I'm going to let you all go back to your day. Make sure you attend the keynote. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.